Today, my friends, is Vlogaday 862. Morning. I had different plans for today, but I've been thinking a lot about the challenges of integrating or assimilating into a new culture or country. And this kind of, I feel like, ends up separating being an immigrant from being an expatriate a little bit, which is a very tender subject, and we're not gonna get too deep into that. But I do wanna get into kind of my own struggles and my own realizations through the process, because I've been thinking about it a lot, especially since I've been here for, almost 2 years now, closing in on it at least. And I'm a thinker, so I'm gonna be thinking about this. Yo. I already tried filming this once on my fancy schmancy camera and didn't really I don't know, I'm struggling to put this to words today. So that is to go back to a window shot. Maybe this will work. We still have a little bit of light for a little while. I managed to find lunch. That was good. That was actually the biggest struggle of the day, probably. What I'm thinking about a lot right now is integration or assimilation into another culture. Right now, I've lived in France for almost 2 years, and I'm thinking in terms of how committed am I to actually being here, to assimilating myself into the culture? If I want to gain dual citizenship, to what lengths do I need to do that? As far as I've already gone, effectively, theoretically will qualify me when the time comes. But of course I want to take on the responsibilities and culture as much as I can. While at the same time, there are elements of French culture that are always going to drive me nuts that I don't want to assimilate into my life. And while there are things that I've already taken on board. So I guess in a way I've already found a healthy balance of that, but there are certain things within it that don't feel particularly healthy. Namely within the realms of feeling a little bit like an outsider and the loneliness that comes with it. There are always going to be times and days and weeks where I feel like the dumb foreigner, whether it's because of language barriers or because there are systems that do not function the way that I think that they should function, and because of that I walk into them all wrong. There are a number of things that are going to be challenging, especially as I try to build and grow a business here, as I think about launching myself into other arenas outside of just content creation, I guess is what you could label me as right now, as a content creator. There are things that I want to do, but France is not necessarily the friendliest economic home for certain ventures. They're not exactly the most entrepreneurial in spirit, and I know I'm going to get myself in a little bit of trouble for saying that, but it's true. If you come from the United States, there's a huge flipping difference between the attitudes revolving around new businesses and especially around technological innovation. All that to say that it leaves me kind of thinking and pondering about, what does my future look like? What does my place here look like? I do love living here. I love the lifestyle. I love the city. I love so many things about being here. And there are things that I miss about the States. And there are things that annoy me obviously here, but I love Paris and I love living here. But Rachel at Thanksgiving asked me, why do I want to live here so much? And to be honest, so much of it comes down to an internal feeling. I just love being here. I feel at home here. There's a lot of heart reason to stay here, but the brain reasons don't check off quite as quickly or as easily. And that's definitely stuck with me, especially as I struggle a little bit with the adulting loneliness. As we all know, as you become an adult, if you're not an adult yet or you're still in college, have fun. As you become an adult, building friendships becomes more challenging, especially meaningful relationships, finding those right people. And I was talking with another friend of mine who is an adult and who's very accomplished in his field and somebody that I respect very much. But we were talking about sharing that loneliness. He's moved to a new place recently to take a new job. This ties into the culture as well. It doesn't just tie into being an adult, but there are so many different elements when you're a kid that force you into contact and relationship with other kids, with other people. And so whether that's school or shared pop culture, there's a lot of things that are kind of limited to your sphere and that you share together. Why did that get really bright? Oh, notification. I think of it like molecules or stars or something, just like a cluster that you're never fully in contact with the people around you, but you're closer to them and you have a closer sense of community. And as you become an adult, you're released from a lot of those forces that pressure you together and you're just kind of spinning off, hopefully in the same direction as a few other people. But you kind of see those relationships, those people spin off in their own directions, doing their own things more and more as time goes on. And thankfully you cross paths with other people as you're spinning out in the midst of open space, and you make friends as you go, and those friendships come and go. Some of them align for longer than others, many of them for seasons. But one of those forces that joins people together is a shared culture, a common base for childhood, common language, common jokes, common songs, a lot of things that really pull people together that I definitely don't have with a lot of my French counterparts. I'm missing large portions of that, and I will never be able to make up for a lot of that. And at the same time, I don't want to get too far away from my American counterparts. I still want to share a lot with them. I want to make sure that I maintain those relationships and that I maintain that sense of identity as well. And this goes back to my talking about kind of losing your sense of identity. All of this to say that there are a number of you that are watching that have reached out at various points that have said that you want to live abroad, you want to move abroad, you would like to live overseas long term. This is one of the things to keep in mind and to have a strategy for. And I don't have a very good strategy for it. I'm trying to make it up as I go. So you can be wiser than me and go into this with a better strategy. But how do you maintain the connections with people that you have back home? How do you build new connections with people here? And how do you build good, strong connections with the culture that you're moving into? Definitely never going to assimilate fully because I have an expat mentality. I don't have an immigration mentality where I intend to come here and stay here forever and be here. I'm very fortunate and very privileged to be able to go back to the States when I want or when I need, and also travel fairly broadly outside of that. And I want to incorporate more of the world into my own personal culture than just kind of chucking one for another. That said, what kind of strategy do you have in place to take on the elements of the culture that you're in that you do like, and to meet people that are here that are of a similar mind or are open-minded to meeting you as a foreigner? There's a lot of questions, and recognizing that you are a foreigner. I am a foreigner. I will always be a foreigner here in France. And while that brings its own novelty points, especially being an American who speaks French, and people are like, what? You're an American and you speak more than just English? Tell me more. There's that wanes, and long-lasting relationships are built around commonalities and are built around sharing that trajectory as you're spinning off into nothing alone. And the closer you're spinning off into nothing with somebody, the better that relationship can be. I don't know if that analogy really works or breaks down at some point. Hopefully Neil deGrasse Tyson never sees this because that would probably be embarrassing. But I'm just trying to say, I know that I'm struggling at a root level with feeling like a foreigner sometimes, feeling like an idiot sometimes, feeling very lonely sometimes, and those are all solvable problems. Some not 100% solvable, like I'm never going to become fully French, and I'm never going to be fully not an idiot, like I'm always going to have my stupid moments, but I can definitely bridge a lot of gaps, and I can move towards a happier, healthier version of me. And this is an ongoing thing. I mean, like ever since the first time I moved abroad, I sensed a difference between like Jay in France and Jay at home, and the lack of connection you have over life experience with people who don't share that. And those gaps only really tend to grow unless you can directly incorporate people into your life a little bit more actively. So how do I do that? And obviously the vlog is a very useful tool for me personally to be able to share my life with people back home or wherever they may be so that they can feel like they understand what's going on with me and connected. But how do I feel connected to them is actually a bigger question. So yeah, those are kind of the thoughts that I'm thinking today. And like I said, I already filmed this once and decided to trash that because it was a little bit of a trash video. Like I was just definitely struggling to even formulate some of this, and I hadn't eaten and I had gone for a run. So that was a really bad combination for cerebral function. And now, I don't know, I'm going to keep thinking about it. I'm going to keep dwelling on it. But as I take this weekend to try and relax a little bit more, these are kind of the thoughts that are popping up in my head, and I want to engage with them as best as I can. So that's my story for today. That is the episode. Tune in tomorrow for something a little bit more out and about. I'll be meeting with Kate for a minute, but then we're hopefully going to do a little bit of Space Invader hunting and maybe go look at Christmas lights. I'm going to try and look at Christmas lights in the next couple of days is my goal. It will happen before Christmas, but sooner than later is my goal. And I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning for whatever the heck tomorrow turns into. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend, or that you had a wonderful weekend. Good luck with the rest of your week, because I know it's Monday now for you. Good luck. It's going to be great.